That conversation has been on since October of last year. Among other, times that it has come up for Nigerians to bear when a member of the House of Representatives, said on the floor of the House that, look, Nigerians should be allowed to bear arms. And of course, when we put that question to the Chief of Army Staff, he said he doesn't think it's a good idea. It's a call to anarchy. What's your take on it?
In the first place, we have to discuss the right and then proceed to examine the propriety. In the first place, it is not correct to say that Nigerians have no right to bear arms. Apart from the fact that the penal code applicable in the north and the criminal code applicable in the south recognize the right to self-defense. In other words, if somebody aims a gun at me and I can quickly grab another gun, I have the right to shoot.
Just to be clear, you're saying the law permits Nigerians to bear guns?
Yep. But you are required to apply for the license. But I'll come to that in a moment. I'm just talking of right to self-defense. It's also guaranteed by the Constitution. All I'm required to do is that I must not use a force that is not proportional to the threat. In other words, if you are going to hit me with a cane, I cannot go for a gun. That will not be proportional. So the proportionality is the issue. Under Section 33 of the Constitution, which guarantees the right to life. The right to life is sacrosanct. But there are exceptions. Section 33, subsection 2 provides that somebody will not be said to have lost his right to life under the Constitution if he loses his life because some force was applied while he or she is trying to kill another person or to steal my property. But it's a capitalist society. The right to property is also sacrosanct. So, in other words, somebody can lose his life if he's trying to kill another citizen or trying to remove the property of another citizen. Somebody can deploy some force, but the force must be reasonable.
You've got me confused here, Mr. Falana. No, we're coming there. So, first of all, you talked about the fact that Nigerians can bear arms according to the law.
Yeah, under the Firearms Act, good. You are required to apply for a license to bear arms.
Okay, we're coming there. Now, you also said that the force, both ways, must be proportional.
Yes.
How do I know the kind of proportion the other fellow was bringing my way? For me to know the kind of
You have to look at the circumstances. For instance, if a gang of armed robbers took over your house, whatever force you can muster, the law allows you to deploy it. Any force you can muster. Because they have already surrounded your house. Whether you have a license or not, and you can lay hands on a gun, you can shoot and kill them.
According to the law.
Yes, you won't be charged with murder.
So will the
even if you are charged with murder, you will plead self-defense.
So how did I get the gun in the first place?
That's another matter. That's another matter. Once the law says I can defend myself by deploying force that is reasonable or proportional, I can grab it from anybody. But if you now want to, I'm reacting to what the Chief of Army Staff said. I am saying, in Nigeria, if you meet certain conditionalities, you can apply for a license to bear arms.
We'll come to the applying for the license in the first place. But what I understood before now is that there is a limit to the kind of firearms that a Nigerian, an average Nigerian can.
For sure.
Okay, so
for sure,
speak to that, because some people listening to you right now can just make a call to someone in Germany and say, I need an AK-47 in my house.
No.
I'll get a license for it.
You must have a license, which is why on a regular basis, when the government discovers that many people have acquired weapons in the country, you are then told to report to the commissioner of police in that state, either to renew your license or to validate your license. Because if you have no licenses and you have weapons, you have committed an offense under the Firearms Act. So you must apply for a license. Where a problem may arise is where you now say, sorry, you've given license to Mr. A to bear arms. You now deny it to Mr. B, who meets the conditions. Of course, you can challenge that in court.
Before or after I've been killed by a firearm that I did not?
No, for denier, the denier.
Okay.
The denier can be challenged.
Let's stick with this for a little while longer, Mr. Falana. You said that a Nigerian has a right to defend himself.
Yes, under the criminal code and the penal code
and
the Constitution.
With any gun available.
Yes.
Is that what you just said?
Oh, yes.
So even if it's a .45 or an AK-47, I can defend myself?
If the man is trying to shoot me with AK-47 and I can lay hands on AK-47, I have the right to shoot. To aim and kill him before he kills me. That's the law.
Okay.
But what is not permitted in any society is unregulated licensing of bearing arms, which is it's a major problem in the United States today. That even madmen and women can acquire guns and start killing people, shooting children in school.
But how do we know who has the right to it? You said every Nigerian does have a right to it. Now, how does the law coin it to say, okay, this category of persons cannot have a firearm?
For instance, the law is saying, if you have been convicted in the last 5 years for, certain offenses, you will not be allowed. If you are a person of intemperate habits, you will not be given a license. If you're under 17, you will not be given a license, and so on and so forth. But if you meet the conditions and you are said to be responsible, you may be given a license, but they won't give. I was talking to a police officer one day, a senior police officer. Man, I'm trying to acquire a license. I have a lot of threats to my life. He said, no, they won't give you. I said, why? He said, because the government will believe that you may just fire, a government official one day. I said, no. But the government will have to find out. I mean, of course, the person must not be a person of unsound mind. It's in the law. To say, Nigerians have no right to bear arms is not correct.
So what
Nigerians who meet certain conditions can bear arms. But what is ideal, what is important, which has brought this argument? And if I understand the position of the Chief of Army Staff, I think he's opposed to unregulated license. But for them to discourage Nigerians from applying for licenses or from acquiring weapons illegally is to have a collective approach.
How about
to defend our people?
Okay.
Every citizen is entitled to his or her right to life. And I've gone to court where a man was killed I think in 2011 in Kaduna, right? During a riot. The widow came crying and said, no, madam, we'll go to court for you. And we approached the court. And the court awarded damages in our favor, on the ground that the government that should have prevented the riot failed in its duty. I also have done a case against Ghana where a 15-year-old Nigerian boy went to swim. No, he didn't swim, he didn't know how to swim, but the teacher made him to swim and he got drowned. We approached the ECOWAS court. The court awarded a colossal sum of $250,000 in favor of the parents. Oh, yes. Oh, yes. So the government has a duty to defend the right to life of every citizen. Where the government fails, you are simply asking citizens to take care of themselves.
But now,
which is a dangerous situation.
Which is what the chief of army staff is also saying. That it's a call to anarchy if we have to go on the tangent of getting everyone to bear arms.
No, but they give arms to certain people. It's a class matter. They give guns to the rich to protect themselves and their properties. But as far as the law is concerned, what properties has a poor man got? A worker who is on 30,000 naira a month, even if the money is paid. But for the rich, the bourgeoisie, your life is so valued by the state. So you are given a license to bear arms. You are said to have met the conditions. But what is important, even if you give the license to everybody, not every Nigerian can raise the money to acquire weapons. So therefore, we must compel the government to provide for the security of every citizen. It's so stated in the Constitution. The security and welfare of the people shall be the primary purpose of government. Section 14.
Let's explore that last point you just made now, when you talk about the bourgeoisie being empowered.
Yes.
Now, a good number of people might say somewhere in their heads that, okay, maybe Mr. Falana is actually pointing in a particular direction. That politicians or the political class who wants to get these things done by every means can empower some of their cronies and, give them arms, get the licenses for them.
They do it. The Constitution.
What do they do?
The Constitution has abolished thuggery, vanguards, and so on and so forth, where politicians arm young people. But you hear all the time, you read all the time, that thugs have been arrested with weapons. Where have they been tried? Nowhere. So, the volume of weapons in the country will have to be blamed. The political class will have to be blamed for it. Now, what has the Senate done now? They summoned the NSA and the service chiefs to do what? To discuss problems that you know about. In those areas, in those two local governments in Plateau, where this unfortunate incident occurred, you have police stations, you have the offices of the State Security Service. Don't you know SSS officials are in every local government? So what happened? They are not equipped, they are not empowered to stop violence. They are not empowered, they are not equipped to gather intelligence. So I'm going to challenge the National Assembly, the Senate. It's not enough to summon service chiefs. After the meeting, can we decide as a people that we want to empower the police in our country to police the society? Look, just imagine the budget of the National Assembly was 178 billion naira. It had been raised to 344 billion naira, and the president signed the budget into law 2 days ago. Can you say such a country cannot equip the police if it is committed to do so?
What would you advise the governor to do? Should he, I know we've talked about this in history, should he just go ahead, apply for mass license for certain people to acquire those guns that are allowed by law and give to the people? That's number one question. And the second one...
the second one has to do with the Firearms Act. I mean, it was first 1959. The threat to life has sort of evolved, but the law guarding the use or ownership of these arms has not evolved in any way. Would you be looking to recommend something as regards amendment of that act?
Well, number one, on Plateau State, I can say that I was rather flabbergasted that the governor of the state or the federal government never declare curfew, never impose curfew on that state, at least to stop the nocturnal killings. Number two, nobody has challenged the police and the state security service. What happened? Did you sleep? What happened? Again, you have to talk of failure of intelligence. Three, this has become a recurring matter in that state. So what was done in the past? The federal government has set up judicial commissions of inquiry. The state has set up judicial commissions of inquiry. So what happened? What happened with the reports, the recommendations? They were never implemented. Those who were arrested in the past, why were they not prosecuted? And I have read some of the accounts where some of the victims who survived said, I know the person that attacked me. So has the government gone to such people to make arrests? No arrest has been made. And once you have impunity, there's no way you are going to stop illegal killings. And of course, the major problem that is not being addressed by the political class, by the governor of the state, by the federal government and all of them, is the refusal of the government, federal and state, to establish ranches for herders, herdsmen. The government had agreed that the best way to stop herders invading farms and killing people is to have ranches. You have a place where you quarter them and their animals. You have grass planted, water will be available, there will be schools for their children. That is the model in the entire African continent. We have less than 20 million heads of cattle in Nigeria. Ethiopia has over 70 million heads of cattle. Botswana, there was a time, I think 2013 or 2014, where the cow population, cattle population in Botswana was higher than the population of Botswanese citizens. How do these countries, African countries, how do they address this problem? It is by having ranches. Now, the last government, the Buhari regime, initially said, I think the Minister of Agriculture then, Audu Ogbe, said, oh, we have acquired 55,000 hectares of land for ranches. At the end of the day, he jumped to be talking of cattle colony, and so on and so forth. But before General Buhari left, before President Buhari left, he made available, and I brought this out, he made available 6.2 billion naira to build ranches in Katsina. Katsina alone. And I challenge other state government on the question of equality of states to demand for the same amount to have ranches in their state. But nobody followed it up. On Firearms Act, Chamberlain, very interestingly, the late Governor Akeredolu, Rotimi Akeredolu, we call him Aketi, had actually briefed me to challenge the refusal of the government to approve licenses for the Amoteco operatives in Ondo State to bear arms. And I've asked him, do a letter to them. Let us have the refusal in writing so that we could go to court. Unfortunately, the process was on when he took ill. Okay. But what is important, that law is still okay. It's still okay. You need the Firearms Act in the country. It doesn't need any amendment. What is required, the law should be there. Okay. When it is important, the government may occasionally grant licenses, but for the generality of the people, the government will have to equip the police to this work. Okay. We have to withdraw 50,000 soldiers that are doing police work to do their own work.